understand.
I walked Black Lives Matter Plaza yesterday with a Chinese American.
Yeah, I didn't ask you about that.
No, I'm answering your question. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And she advocated.
Is it okay, Mr. Chairman, if we go over here? Because
for leaving those
the witness
signs
wants
up.
to
No, I'd like to answer more than yes or no
We
questions.
can let him answer the question.
Yeah, I can let him answer because I wasn't quite done yet, but now he's occupying my time. If you want him to answer it, that's fine. So yes, about the renaming of the bases after pro-union, pro-American generals.
Thank you, Mr. Raskin. I'd like to answer that question in more than just a yes or no format.
Okay.
I walked the Black Lives Matter Plaza yesterday with Xi Van Fleet, Chinese Maoist Cultural Revolution survivor, and I had an interesting conversation with her in which she advocated, I'd never thought about this before. And by the way, I don't address this topic in my book. I wrote about Marxist critical race theory. She said, I'd recommend that once we defeat wokeism, we leave all of the Black Lives Matter paint on the ground and the signs naming the streets. I asked her why. She says, because it's a reminder that once here on the north side of the White House, we had a woke revolution, a Marxist revolution take place, and I agree with that. It's a reminder that there has been such divisive conflict in this enemy before that people were willing to use violent force to hurt one another. I have no problem with the general's efforts.
If I understand you correctly, I'm trying to torture out an answer, but what you're saying is that we should have army bases named after Confederate generals or Nazi generals, people we've defeated in war. Is that right?
I'm not willing to let you put words in my mouth.
We're about 2 minutes over here, so we're just going to let Mr. Lohmeyer finish, and that's it.
So my point is, this is not an issue in which I've actively been involved. The renaming of bases. I wrote a book about Marxist DEI, Marxist critical race theory. That's my expertise. I have no personal issue with the fact that this gentleman to my left, who honorably served his country, has been a part of a commission to do that. I have personal opinions about why it's wrong-headed and a part of an ideological push, but this is not my issue.
You would not have renamed them, in other words.
Well, we're point of order. 2.5 minutes
that's not something I ever focused on.
All right, I think I got my answer, Mr. Chairman. I'll yield back to you.
Go for Mr. Biggs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I also want to thank all of our witnesses for their excellent testimony today and also for their service to the country, and also members of this committee who served in the uniform as well as in this body. Mr. Seidel, do I have the right? Or General Seidel, I want to look at 3 attacks on politicization or diversity changes and the thing that I guess people are calling woke. I want to start with women in the military, and of course, women were systematically excluded from the military for a long time, and there's a huge struggle about that. And finally, women were able to enter the armed forces on relatively equal status. I don't know if my friend Mr. Higgins would consider these part of the traditional American soldiers or not, but women have served for a long time in different capacities and now have equality. But if I'm assuming that women in the military want the same rights that women across the country do, and after Donald Trump's gerrymandered Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade and women's right to choose, which was in the law for more than a half century, women across the country have rejected that and have stood up for their full reproductive freedom, including in Kansas, Wisconsin, Michigan, California, Vermont, you name it. Everywhere it's been on the ballot, vast majorities of women and men have supported women's right to choose. So I assume, now I don't have a study on it, but I assume women in the military feel the same way, and that they would want to maintain their right to choose their own reproductive health care. Now, Senator Tuberville interfered with hundreds and hundreds of military promotions for many, many months in order to stop women in the military from having their complete full access to reproductive choice and to health care. Now, who do you think is politicizing the military? Is it Senator Tuberville with his anti-choice agenda where he wants to dictate to all of the women of the military what their access will be to health care, or is it those women themselves? Are they the ones that are somehow perpetrating a woke agenda by saying that they want to have equal choice? And don't we depend on women in the military these days? Last I saw, it was something like 18 or 20%, even in the Army. So please answer that if you would.
Yes, I would say that Senator Tuberville created political pawns out of those general officers. We have a non-political army, and we're one of the few countries in the history of the world that has never had a military coup d'etat, and it's partly because we are non-political. And yet, Senator Tuberville created political pawns for a policy he disagreed with. I couldn't disagree more with him for doing that and hurting our force and those general and flag officers.
The military also depends on lots of African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans. That's just a reality. You might love it, you might hate it, you might be ambivalent about it, you might just accept it. But in any event, that's the reality, as I understand it. And in any event, the Army decided that it wanted to rename military bases that had been named not after U.S. generals, but after Confederate generals who joined the Confederacy in rebellion against the Union. So, like Fort Benning was renamed after a pro-Union, pro-American general. Fort Gordon was renamed as Fort Eisenhower. Fort Hill was renamed as Fort Walker. And yet, I take it this is part of the big anti-woke arraignment and indictment of the military, that we have renamed military bases after pro-Union, pro-American soldiers, generals, people who've been loyal and faithful to the Union, as opposed to those who have opposed the Union and took up arms against the Union in traitorous insurrection. Now, who's politicizing this question? Is it the people who go along with the Army's decision to say that's who our bases should be named after, pro-Americans, or the people who are wanting to stick to the old Confederate battle names? And I'd like you to address that, and also Mr. Lohmeyer, I think you've taken the position against changing the names. Yeah.
Well, remember that the names were changed, Congressman, because this body voted overwhelmingly, overrode the veto of President Trump to create the naming commission, of which I served as vice chair. It was my proudest moment to rename those after true American heroes and not those who chose treason to preserve slavery.
Thank you. And do you agree with that, Mr. Lohmeyer?
I'll say that it's my view that Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin has politicized the military. As soon as the Supreme Court decision was made, he issued a policy memorandum blaming the Supreme Court's decision to reverse Roe v. Wade on the recruitment.
But I'm asking about the naming. I'm asking about the naming. I'm asking about the naming of our military bases. If you don't want to address it, say you don't want to answer it.
Yeah,
but I understand you take.
I walked Black Lives Matter Plaza yesterday with a Chinese American.
Yeah, I didn't ask you about that.
No, I'm answering your question. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And she advocated.
Is it okay, Mr. Chairman, if we go over here, because
for leaving those
the witness
signs
wants
up.
to
No, I'd like to answer more than yes or no
We can
questions.
let him answer the question.
So you would not have renamed them, in other words.
Well, we're
Point of order.
2.5
That's
minutes
not
over.
something I ever focused on.
All right, I think I got my answer,
Not
Mr.
something
Chairman.
I've
I'll
ever
yield back
focused
to
Go
you.
for Mr. Biggs.